The Magnificent 12 by Michael Grant. 4. Let's just skip the part where Stefan lost 2 pints of blood, and the part where the doctor told him he could easily have ended up dead. Let's skip over the slow workings of Stefan's mind as he sought to make some sense of the fact that he had come quite close to dying at the age of 15. And while we're doing that, let's skip over the fact that Mac's father didn't notice that he was more or less covered in blood. Mac's parents didn't pay a whole lot of attention to him. It wasn't really sad or tragic. They weren't bad parents. It was just that at some point they had given up trying to figure Mac out. He'd had one phobia or another since age 4. His mother had tried many times to talk him through these irrational fears. His father had tried as well, and sometimes both at once with a school counselor, and a minister, and a shrink. 2 shrinks. 2 shrinks, 2 parents, a minister, a school counselor. But they had never had much success. In between talking Mac out of being terrified of things that weren't really scary, they had tried to talk him into being scared of things that he actually should be afraid of. Things like bullies, for example. The boy had no sense. That was clear to his parents and everyone else. The boy simply had no sense. So over time, Mac's parents had learned to steer around him. They'd given him his own space, which was how he liked it, mostly. Mac assumed that when Stefan returned to school, he would have to demonstrate his toughness by giving Mac a serious beatdown. The upside was that in anticipation of the epic massacre, the other bullies were leaving Mac alone. It was just possible that Stefan would be irritated with any bully who presumed to pre-beat Mac. No one wanted to deny Stefan his clear rights. So, in the short term, things were good for Mac in the aftermath of the Wednesday massacre, as it came to be called. Stefan was not back at school on Thursday or Friday. Maybe he croaked after all, Mac said to himself on Friday. And that would be bad. Yes, bad. But when Monday rolled around, that guilty hope was banished. Stefan was definitely not dead. He had a massive bandage on his arm, white gauze wrapped by a sort of web-like thing. But Stefan wouldn't need both arms to murder Mac. It was a scary moment when Mac looked up and saw Stefan's sullen face at the far end of a hallway full of kids on that fateful Monday. It was scary for Mac and the few kids who considered him a close friend, but everyone else was just plain giddy. This was the most anticipated moment in the history of Richard Gere Middle School. Imagine the degree of anticipation that might have greeted the simultaneous release of an Iron Man movie, a brand new sequel to a Harry Potter book, and albums by the top 3 bands all rolled into one happy, nervous, OMG, I totally can't wait to see this moment. The kids saw Mac step into the hallway. They saw Stefan also in the hallway. The kids parted magically in the middle, like they were hair and someone had dragged a comb right down the middle of the hallway. There was a part, that's the point. Kids hugging the lockers to the left, kids hugging the lockers to the right. And all the kids were incredibly excited. Mac felt a lump in his throat. He was excited too, but of course in a very different way. He was excited in the way that had to do with thinking, so I wonder if there really is an afterlife. That kind of excited. Should I run? Mac wondered. He sighed. No, wouldn't do any good, would it? No one answered, so he answered himself. Better to just take my beating here. If Stefan pounded him here in the hallway, some teacher would probably break it up. Eventually. So Mac squared his shoulders. He tugged at the back of his t-shirt. He rolled his neck a little, loosening the muscles there. He wasn't going to win this fight, but he was going to try. Stefan walked straight toward him, his overly adult biceps barely contained by his t-shirt sleeves. Stefan had pecs. Stefan had muscles in the back of his neck. He had muscles in places where all Mac had was soft, yielding flab. Mac walked toward him, and oh boy, you could have heard a pin drop. So everyone certainly heard it when Santiago dropped his binder and everyone jumped, and then giggled, and the anticipation just grew because now it had an element of humor to it. Stefan came to a stop 5 feet from Mac. And at that moment, A very, very old man, wearing a black robe that kind of hung down over his face, a man who Mac could not help but notice smelled like some unholy combination of feet, garbage cans, and Salisbury steak, simply appeared. Appeared as in not there, followed immediately by there.